They said sorry. And you felt it. That wave of relief. That loosening in your chest. Finally. They get it. Maybe this time things will be different. But guess what? They won't. Because that apology wasn't about you. It was never about you. It was about keeping you exactly where you are. Close enough to control, far enough from leaving. That sorry was a calculation. Not a feeling. And finally they said, I'm sorry, you know I hate hurting you. Interesting. They hate hurting you. And yet here you are. Hurt. Again. By the same person who hates doing it so much they keep doing it. Think about it. The apology always comes at the right moment, doesn't it? Not too early, not too late. Right when you're about to pull away. Right when the distance between you gets uncomfortable for them. That's not remorse. That's timing. And timing that precise doesn't happen by accident. They're not sorry for what they did. They're sorry you're close to leaving. And when you think about it, maybe you'll finally see a difference. A big one. And deep down you've felt that difference for a while now. Haven't you? Listen, you know the cycle. You've lived it enough times to know exactly how it goes. Something happens, they cross a line, say something that cuts deep, do something that can't be ignored, push just far enough that you can't pretend it's fine. And you react, you pull back, you go quiet. Maybe you say this is it. Maybe you don't say anything at all. But they feel the shift. And then it starts. The softening, the sudden attention, the texts that come more frequently, the version of them you fell for showing up just enough to remind you it exists. And then the apology. Carefully worded, just emotional enough to feel real, just accountable enough to seem like growth. And what do? And you feel it again. That relief, that hope. Maybe they mean it this time, maybe something actually got through. So you stay. And for a little while things are better. They're more present, more careful, more like the person you needed them to be. And you think, see, the conversation worked. They heard me, they're trying. But the funny thing is, they're not trying. They're just resetting. Hey, be honest. How many times has this exact cycle played out? The hurt, the distance, the apology, the honeymoon, the slow slide back to exactly how it was before. Different words each time. Same result every time. And now listen, here's what it does to you. You start associating their apologies with hope. Every sorry becomes evidence that they're capable of more. That the good version of them is still in there, and that if you just hold on a little longer it'll stick this time. But let's say it out loud, it won't stick. Because nothing actually changed. The apology wasn't the beginning of something different. It was a reset button. Back to zero, back to you staying, back to them being comfortable. Oh, are you about that again? About what they said, I've been doing a lot of thinking and I know I need to do better. And what? You just wanted to believe it so badly. Because you needed it to be true. Because the alternative, that they know exactly what they're doing and choose to keep doing it, is harder to sit with than hope. But that's exactly what's happening. They know. They choose. And the apology is how they make sure you don't leave before the next time. Look, here's what's actually happening underneath the sorry. They've learned you. Not in the way a partner should learn you, your needs, your triggers, what makes you feel safe. They've learned your exit points, the exact moments when you're close to leaving, the specific things that need to be said to pull you back. And they deploy them. Deliberately, consistently, every single time. That's not a relationship, that's a system with a maintenance schedule. Think about it. The apology never comes when things are fine. It never comes out of nowhere, unprompted, just because they reflected and felt genuinely bad. It comes when the distance gets too big, when you go quiet for too long, when you start pulling away in a way they can feel. That's when the sorry appears. Right on cue. And here's the thing, the content of the apology, have you noticed how it's always just enough? Never too much, never a full acknowledgement of the pattern, the damage, the repetition. Just enough accountability to feel real. Just enough emotion to seem genuine. Just enough change to buy another cycle. Do you know the reason behind it? They've calibrated it. Whether they know it consciously or not, they've calibrated it to you. Do you remember how confused you were when they said, "I know I keep messing up and I don't deserve you"? And all those question marks, how? They don't deserve you. And yet they're not leaving. Funny how the people who claim they don't deserve you never actually step aside. They say it just long enough for you to reassure them. For you to become the one doing the comforting. Suddenly you're managing their guilt about hurting you. And you still don't understand how did that happen. So, here's the mechanics of it. They hurt you, you react. They apologize, you soften. They get comfortable, they hurt you again. And the cycle runs because the apology works. Every time it works they learn it a little better. They refine it. They know exactly how much sorry is needed and they never give more than that. Because more would mean actual change. And change would mean giving something up. Control, comfort, you. And honestly, the most calculated part of all this? The timing. They never apologize when you're calm, when you've already processed it and built some distance. No. They apologize right in the wound. When you're still raw, still hopeful, still desperate for it to mean something. That's when the sorry lands hardest. That's when you're most likely to accept it. And let me put it this way, they know that, they feel it, and they use it. Come on. Think about every apology you've accepted from them. How many came with actual change? Not promises. Not good intentions that lasted 2 weeks. Real, sustained, visible change. How many? Because an apology without change isn't an apology. It's a strategy. A way of managing you without having to actually become someone who treats you better. You've been managed. Not loved, not heard, not considered. Managed. And the sorry was the tool. So let's talk about what keeping you there is actually costing you. Because that's the point of all of it, isn't it? Not the apology, not the brief honeymoon that follows it. The point is that you stay. That's the whole goal. And while you're staying, while you're giving them another chance, while you're watching carefully for signs that this time is different, your life is running. And they're fine. Perfectly fine. Aren't they? Look, every cycle you go through with them takes something from you. Not dramatically, not all at once. Slowly. Each time you accept an apology that leads nowhere, you trust yourself a little less. Your instincts start feeling unreliable. You start wondering if you're too harsh, too unforgiving, too quick to see the worst in them. Because they said sorry, because they seemed genuine, because you wanted it to be real so badly. And that self-doubt. That's the real damage. They said, "I don't know why you can't just accept my apology and move on." Right. You can't move on. Because moving on without change just means waiting for it to happen again. And you know that. But now you're the problem, now you're the one who can't let things go. They apologized. What more do you want? What you want is for it to actually mean something. That's not too much. Here's the question you need to sit with. Not the one about whether they love you. Not the one about whether they're capable of change. This one. How many more cycles are you willing to go through? Because there will be more. Face it. The next one is already coming. You know that, you've known it every time you accepted the apology and watched things slowly slide back to where they were. How many more times? And think about what you've already spent on this. The energy, the hope, the conversations you've had with yourself trying to figure out if you're being fair. The times you've defended them to people who could see what you couldn't. The version of yourself that existed before all this, quieter now, smaller, more careful. That didn't happen by accident. They kept you there. Apology by apology, sorry by sorry. And the next one is already loaded. Ready for when you need it. Look, here's where it changes. Of course, if you decide it does. Because the cycle doesn't break on its own. It doesn't break when they run out of apologies. It breaks when you stop accepting the apology as a substitute for change. That's the only way it ends. And let's be honest, that's harder than it sounds. Because you're not just rejecting an apology. You're rejecting the hope that comes with it. That brief window where things feel possible again. Where the person you needed them to be shows up just enough. Letting go of that hope is the actual hard part. Not leaving. The hope. Here's the thing, you start by separating the apology from the evidence. Because right now every sorry gets evaluated in isolation. Did they seem genuine? Did they say the right things? But that's not the right question. The right question is what came after the last apology. And the one before that. Look at the full picture, not the moment. The moment is designed to move you. If you just think about it, the pattern is the truth. And when you finally see it, you stop responding to the apology on cue. Not as punishment. Because immediate softening is what tells them it worked. That the calibration was correct. But when you stop responding on cue, something shifts. Not in them necessarily. In the dynamic. And that shift matters. Anyway, here's something nobody says. You're allowed to hear the apology and still hold your position. You're allowed to acknowledge that they said sorry without letting it reset everything back to zero. Accepting an apology doesn't mean accepting the behavior that required it. You need to understand that. Those are two different things, and they've been counting on you not knowing that. The most powerful thing you can do right now is decide, quietly, firmly, without announcement, that the next apology means nothing without sustained change behind it. Not 2 weeks of effort, not good intentions. Real change. Consistent. Without you having to ask for it. That's the standard. That's your standard. And it's not too high. It's just higher than what they've been giving you. Which is exactly why it will feel uncomfortable to them. It closes the space between hurting you and losing you. The space the apology was designed to maintain. Close it. With clarity. Listen, here's where we land. Every apology they gave you was measured. Timed. Calculated to give you just enough to stay and never enough to actually heal. That's not remorse. That's management. And you've been managed for long enough. Let's just say, the sorry was never the point. Keeping you there was. And here's the coldest part. They're not going to stop apologizing. Because it keeps working. Every time it works they learn it a little better. Every time you soften they get more precise. The apology isn't going to change. The only thing that can change is what you do when you hear it. Be honest with yourself, you already know the difference between sorry and change. You've always known. You were just hoping you were wrong. But you know what? You weren't.